Shalom and welcome to Temple Talk from the Temple Institute in Jerusalem. Rabbi Chaim Richman here with me, Yitzchak Reuven. Today, the 26th day of the month of the Consoling Father, Menachem Av 5776. It's August 30th, Tuesday, August 30th, 2016. And this Shabbat, Parshat Re'eh, see, beginning in Deuteronomy chapter 11 and verse 26. And also, this Shabbat is the last day of the month of Av and the first day of the 2-day Rosh Chodesh, the new moon of none other than actually, some might call it the last month of the year, the month of Elul, the month of Ani Ledodi Vedodi Li. I am to my beloved and my beloved is to me, the month of preparation, intense spiritual introspection, preparation for the high holy days. Believe it or not, time has come. What a year. It went by so quickly. And you know, I neglected to mention something interesting last week, Yitzchak, when we were talking a lot about, actually it was in our video, I think, we were talking a lot about the beautiful verse in last week's Torah portion, Parshat Akev, the verse that says, "Now, O Israel, what is it that God is asking from you? But to," where is it exactly? That was all the way last week. Chapter 10 and verse 12 in Parshat Akev. "Now, O Israel, what does Hashem your God ask of you? Only to fear Hashem your God, to go in all his ways, and to love him and to serve him." We were talking about that verse, and you know, in Hebrew, V'ata Yisrael, ma Hashem Elokecha shoel mi'imach. What does he ask from you? I saw a very beautiful idea mentioned in some of the commentaries that Ma, as you know, has the numerical equivalent of 45. Mm-hmm. And that verse is emphasizing that the main thing really is to know what it means to fear God. And I think one of the novel ideas that we were trying to emphasize in our video presentation last week was that love and fear are two prongs of the same thing. They are interchangeable even. They come from the same place, and they're needed to be used together. And so now we're coming to the month of Elul. It's the end of the month of Av. And this is a time when everything is turning inward. The style of our approach in our service of God on a personal level is inward now. And I mentioned also that that's a change that takes place from the 15th day of Av. So I saw this beautiful idea, Yitzchak, that Ma Hashem Elokecha, what does God ask of you, which is 45, is an allusion to, because we always read it just around the week of Tu B'Av. It's an allusion, that verse, to the 45 days between Tu B'Av, the 15th day of Av, and Rosh Hashanah. In other words, what does Hashem ask of you during this time, specifically now? This is the time of beginning to really focus on the aspect of our lives, the aspect of our divine service, our avodah, of what it really means to have this fear of Hashem. The 45 days. This is the time now. This is the whole vestibule for Rosh Hashanah. Not as we've always said that it begins in Elul, but it really begins already now in the end of Av. The spiritual dynamic shift that's going on is already in effect, and that's going to be reflected by all the Torah portions that we're reading now during the next coming weeks.
And I'll just add to the mix,
please,
the fact that 45, the numerical value, is also the numerical value of Adam, man. So it's the mahut, it's the essence of who we are. That's what we are. That's what we are seeking and discovering and calling forth over these next 45 days.
The sum total of man, as it were.
Of man, yeah.
Which reminds me of the last verse in Ecclesiastes, if I may digress, where Shlomo says, "The sum of the matter, when all has been considered, fear God and keep his commandments, for that is the entire man." So how about that?
Swish.
You're a prophet right there. I'm profiting from my...
I'm a poet. I know it.
Parshat Re'eh, Yitzchak. See, See, I present before you today a blessing and a curse. This is how our Torah portion this week opens up. See, I present before you today a blessing and a curse. And then the verse continues, the blessing is that you will hearken to the commandments of Hashem your God that I command you today. That's the best news I've heard. Mm-hmm. It's like the way the verse is wording it is that is the blessing. You will hearken. Mm-hmm. But 28 continues, and the curse, if you do not hearken to the commandments of Hashem your God and you stray from the path that I command you today to follow gods of others that you did not know. The companion verse, I would say, to this verse, we're going to be reading in a few more weeks in Parshat Nitzavim. In Parshat Nitzavim, we're going to be reading there in chapter 30. I have placed before you today the blessing and the life and the good, and the death and the evil, that which I command you today, to love Hashem your God, to walk in his ways, to observe his commandments, his decrees, and his ordinances. Then you will live and you will multiply. And the whole idea of choosing between blessing and curse is already being foreshadowed at this week's Torah portion, Parshat Re'eh. And the very first thing that we're being told here is that there's a choice. There's a choice, right? I present before you today a blessing and a curse. Which do you want? Which do you want? And I think that there's a profound mystery that is being referenced here. And that is the mystery of all mysteries. When it comes to the saga of human existence, the greatest mystery of all is free choice. Mm-hmm. The fact that everything is about what you choose. So Hashem is saying to us through Moshe right here, I present before you today a blessing and a curse. It's up to you. And it's a choice. And one of the things that we want to explore in this week's Torah portion video is going to be the very interesting idea that in this very parsha, you know what I'm about to say too.
I think I do.
For the first time, we are introduced to the concept of the permanent location of the Holy Temple,
right,
which is referred to none other than the place that God will choose. So what does that mean? That God also has a choice?
How does that work?
So that's what I want to explore. If I may tease our radio audience to come to our video location, we want to explore that more. But I want to say something else in the meantime, and that is, there's a few very interesting things about this verse, and one of them, or several of them, jump out at us from the very first verse in this week's Torah portion, chapter 11, verse 26. See, I present before you today a blessing and a curse. Yitzchak, looking at the Hebrew, can you tell me what some of these questions are? Two of them in particular.
Based on the Hebrew? Can I read the Hebrew to me, please?
Oh, you haven't got it in front of you. Re'eh, anochi noten lifnechem hayom bracha uklala. That's actually both questions that I'm thinking of that are dealt with by many of the most important and illustrious parshanim, the sages. They're already included in this verse. Mm-hmm. The first question is the obvious one, and that is, what is vision-oriented or related about this concept? In other words, I'm giving you today a choice between blessing and curse. And obviously this is an issue of listening to me. This is an issue of the life choices that you're going to make. This is an issue of the terrible mistakes that you might make spiritually. So what does that have to do with seeing? Because after all, isn't the hallmark of the Jewish expression and declaration of our relationship with Hashem, isn't it, hear, O Israel?
Correct.
So hearing is already a bit more, ethereal, and it would seem to us to be of or pertaining more to a spiritual challenge than seeing. Seeing is implying that it's something that you actually can see with the naked eye, and therefore be that much better informed to be able to make the right decision. So that's the first question. Okay. What about this choice that we're making between blessing and curse is a seeing thing. And the second question, which is also very interesting, it's a little bit more subtle, but look at the words. Re'eh anochi noten lifnechem begins with the singular and continues with the plural. In other words, there's a powerful idea being expressed here by this question that Moshe was expressing in the verse. He begins speaking to every single individual as if he's talking to you and you and you. You know, like when you go to a class and you have this feeling, this powerful feeling that he was speaking only to you. Well, it really was like that. Moshe was speaking to every person in the singular, Re'eh. But then immediately he says, Anochi, Re'eh, Anochi, behold, I am noten, placing, Lifnechem, before you, before all of you. What happened here? What happened here? That he segued from the singular to the plural. So there's many different ideas. One of them is that the two words go together, Re'eh Anochi, that you should see the idea of the Ten Commandments. There's all sorts of different things. I saw something actually that really spoke to me. And that was said by none other than the illustrious Gra, the Gaon of Vilna, spoke about this very conundrum. How come the parsha begins with Re'eh and continues with Lifnechem? Right? Moshe begins by speaking to the Jewish people in singular and continues in plural. So he said, the Gaon of Vilna, Rabbi Eliyahu, said that Moshe was coming to teach us something very, very important. That an individual should not say that since the most of the people are like doing a certain thing, they're like going a certain way, I'll also join them with my eyes closed, without even checking it out, whether or not it's the right thing to do. Like, everybody's doing it, so it must be right. So Moshe was basically saying to every individual, Re'eh, it's up to you. It's your obligation to check out what you're personally, what you are doing, if this is the right way or not. And the reason for that is because many times we get involved in something, or we get sucked into something because everybody's doing it, and we stop thinking for ourselves whether or not it's really our truth. But we have to know that sometimes, can you believe this is the Gra? I'm like shaking. Sometimes the majority is mistaken.
Everybody's
and what's
doing
good
it
and what seems to be good for the majority isn't really good for us.
And
therefore every person should check it out.
If you as the individual look and see and make the right choice, you can influence the klal, the general. You can influence other people and turn the
community
tide.
At large. So I was really just absolutely felt like I was a musical instrument, that I was just being plucked by the hands of the Gra, who was saying something that just spoke so much to me in this pshat and this particular interpretation, because of course this is the stuff of our lives. You know, this is exactly what we are up against all the time: convention, and the masses. Same masses about whom Henry David Thoreau, the poet laureate of New England, said the masses lead lives of quiet desperation. Hear it all on Temple Talk. So it's not about quality. It's not about quantity. It's about quality. And Moshe is saying, and again, and it fits perfectly with the whole mood and texture of all of the teachings that he's giving over now in these weeks before he leaves his people, and he's trying to give them the entire skill set, the entire pack that they will need to go into Eretz Yisrael without him. And so now he's giving them an important lesson just couched in a mere word, in the mere change between the singular to the plural. He's saying, watch out for what everybody's doing. You be forewarned.
Don't follow leaders.
And how interesting that in this very same Torah portion, very, very soon, he begins to speak about false prophets. And he begins to speak right away about the sanctity of the land and about the redeemed offers and redeemed offerings, private altars. And he then talks about the prohibition against copying the rites of the Canaanites and a false prophet and one who entices others to go astray, perhaps even an entire city that went astray. That's a good example of the majority doing the wrong thing, isn't it? So this all fits in perfectly with this theme, this sub-theme. It's a sub-theme of preparing for Elul, which we haven't even started to talk about Elul yet. We're going to be talking about Elul a lot when it happens. But right now I'm just talking about the number 45, Ma Hashem Elokecha. What is Hashem asking of you the 45 days from Tu B'Av until Rosh Hashanah? He's asking only to fear him, because as you so beautifully point out, and as we found also alluded to in the end of Ecclesiastes, Kohelet, this is the sum total of a person. But I didn't answer the other thing yet, or begin to even talk about it, and that is, what about this vision thing? Mm-hmm. Like Bush used to say, it's a vision thing. What about this vision thing?
Yeah.
Actually, I had a thought. See if I can find it. Yes. My thought was back to Parshat Ve'etchanan. Yitzchak, to a verse that you and I and many, many, many other people say every single Shabbat when the Torah is taken out of the ark. And that pasuk is, I'm sure you're guessing what I'm about to say. Ata hareta ladat ki Hashem hu Elokim ein od milvado. You have been shown in order to know that Hashem, he is the God. There is none beside him. Actually, even though we say Shema Yisrael, the truth is Moshe is saying here, Re'eh, you can see. It really is something that you can see. You can see the difference between blessing and curse. It really is about seeing. So, Yitzchak, right before we began our podcast today, you asked me, you can deny it, but you did. It was off mic, but you asked me if we're going to start talking soon about your friend and mine, about one of our favorite chapters in the book of Psalms, chapter 27.
Yes.
LeDavid Hashem ori v'ishi. For David, Hashem, the Lord, is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? Hey, whom shall I fear? That's exactly what we were teaching last week in the video. The Lord is the stronghold of my life. From whom shall I be frightened? And what was the whole point that we were trying to give over last week? Only Hashem. Mm-hmm. Ma. Only Hashem, right? That's the sum total of a person. That if you fear Hashem, you don't fear anything else. And that's what so much of this whole chapter 27 that we'll be saying every single day, morning and night, for the entire month of Elul is this extra preparation for the days of awe. But of course, I'm thinking about the most perfect verse, the most beautiful verse that we have mentioned over the years, which is so exactly along the lines of everything that we're trying to get into here with Parshat Re'eh, and that is verse 13. Second to the last verse, the penultimate verse, as you would say, of chapter 27 is Lule hemanti lirot betuv Hashem be'eretz Chaim, which is always translated as, had I not believed in seeing the good of the Lord in the land of the living. But which actually is a more accurate translation would be, Lule hamanti lirot, if I would not have believed, I would not have seen. Mm-hmm. In other words, exactly, as the opposite of what the masses say, which is that seeing is believing. Actually, believing is seeing. That if you understand Hashem, if you fear Hashem, if you know Hashem, then ata hareta ladat, you have begun to show, you have seen, you do see the difference between the blessing and the curse. And this is so perfect for the time that we're in now. And it really is about seeing, and that explains everything.
And explains a lot of what's ill with the world today, because there are things happening in the world, and there's so many people, so many politicians, so many statesmen, leaders who refuse to see what's really going down, and are rather than believing and seeing, they're seeing and believing. They're believing false things, because
And there, you know what? Thank you. You're tying in another major part of our Torah portion, the false prophet.
Mm-hmm.
And there's so much of false leaders in the world today that they put up their own show, and it's all just like smoke and mirrors.
Yeah.
It's all just an app.
With the walnut shells. What do you call it?
The old shell game. It's called the old shell game.
The old shell game.
Or that you like put a pea under one of them or something?
Well, you put something under one. Yeah. Yes. Okay.
What else can you show me?
What else can I show you? What are you willing to see?
There was something you were very upset about. It had to do with the Temple Mount.
We were very upset about the fact that the police began arresting Jews who are not praying in the Temple Mount, which is preposterous enough, but praying outside the Temple Mount. Outside the gates that lead up to the Temple Mount.
If you can read this, you're too close.
And small number of Jews, but more than one incident over the past few days, of Jews that have approached the Temple Mount but not stepped in the Temple Mount.
Outside the gates.
Outside the gates, in a public area, and they're praying quietly. I assume it's a quiet prayer, and the police have arrested them and also have issued distancing orders that they shouldn't go back. They shouldn't be in the old city for 15 days. It's gone to
because they are endangering the public safety.
Because they say they're endangering the public safety, which is just another example of the police.
You don't seem to understand. It's like that a Jew showing that he or she is committed to Hashem and praying towards the Temple Mount is a danger to public order here in Jerusalem.
Rabbi, I think you need to explain. You're saying that rather sarcastically.
Yes, I am. Yeah. This is what the police are feeding us.
This is what the police...
And this is what the courts are agreeing to.
Right.
That we are endangering public order. I should know.
And so the question is, where can a Jew pray without endangering public order?
Gosh. Oh, fortunately, there's the music. But don't go anywhere. This is Temple Talk, and we shall return. We'll be right back. Stay with us, Temple Talk.
Shalom and welcome back to Temple Talk today, 26th day of the month of Av, 5776. It's the 30th of August, 2016. This week, this Shabbat, Parshat Re'eh, C. And this week is also the first day of Rosh Chodesh, of a 2-day Rosh Chodesh, inaugurating the month of Elul, which we've been talking about. As the Rabbi mentioned, the last month of the year according to a certain count, if we count Tishrei, Rosh Hashanah is the beginning of the year, but if we count Nisan, the month of the Passover, as the first month of the year, then this is the 5th month. Am I correct, Rabbi? Rabbi's, he's playing with his eyebrows, he's making faces at me. And both ways of marking the year are correct, because there's more than one new year in the Hebrew calendar. But I digress. Rabbi, I wanted to mention something that we didn't even talk about once, you and I, because I noticed it last Friday, and I thought it was very astonishing. And that is that it came into the news last week that the mayor of Jerusalem, Nir Barkat, who has a plan to build a cable car that's going to go somewhere outside the old city. He announced, while standing on the Mount of Olives, looking over the old city, he announced that he intends to have a stop there in the city of David. He said so that people will be able to go to the city of David and, as he put it, purify themselves and then go up to the Temple Mount. And the understanding that was, the interpolation that was given in the article was that he was talking about people being able to go to the spring of the Gihon, the Shiloach spring, where we have done the reenactment of the water libation during the Sukkot holiday. They'll be able to go there and immerse themselves and go up to the Temple Mount. Well,
on their way to the pilgrimage to the Holy
Right,
Temple, basically.
right.
So a left-wing newspaper
Right.
took this and said, "Oh, he's such a fascist. He's
Right.
implying that he's in favor of Jews visiting the city of David." And et cetera.
Anyway, I thought it was beautiful. And that's what a mayor of Jerusalem's supposed to
That
be
was
for.
amazing.
And what also I thought was amazing is that, as you know, Rabbi, in 2012, 4 years ago, we commissioned and had a series of paintings made here in Israel. One depicting the Beit HaMikdash, the Holy Temple, being constructed in the setting of the modern Jerusalem. And anybody who watches your Parshat video each week will see that that's in the background. And that painting, the original, and its sister painting, both hang in the Temple Institute's exhibit in the Old City. The other painting shows the completed Holy Temple in modern Jerusalem, with pilgrims approaching it with flags from all different nations around the world. There's the light rail can be seen also bringing people, and a cable car heading in the direction of the city of David to drop people off where they can immerse and go up to the Temple Mount. And in almost a precise location where Mayor Barkat had himself videoed, and he showed this on his Facebook page. In our painting is a man holding his young son, pointing and showing his son the Holy Temple. I just thought it was beautiful, and I posted it on our Facebook page last Friday. Anybody who hasn't seen it can look.
So you're saying that we were right when we commissioned?
I'm saying we were prophetic, and not in the false sense of the word either.
Not in the false sense.
No,
in the good sense.
I think it's just very beautiful that.
Actually, it was the initiative of the painter. We didn't specify that in the work order. It was the renowned Beit Shemesh painter Ofer Yom Tov who forced the moment to its crisis and prophesied that there should be a cable car in those beautiful paintings.
And the mayor of Jerusalem has taken him up on it. And in any way you want to look at it, I just think that it's very beautiful. And if we're talking about Parshat Re'eh, which is about seeing, there is visible proof of a general sweeping change in the mindset of the people of Israel, who are beginning to see in their mind's eyes and share it with others the vision of the rebuilt Holy Temple and the place that God will choose.
Yes, as well they should, as the nation of Israel that is going into the land, and these Torah portions, Moshe is giving all of these instructions. Again, the idea of the chosen house, that the place that Hashem will choose, is beginning to emerge. Now, in the following Torah portions, it begins in this week's Torah portion. It's mentioned actually for the very, very first time in this context, that here in Parshat Re'eh in chapter 12 and verse 11, it shall be that the place where Hashem your God will choose to rest his name. So this is a new concept here. And all of these Torah portions, of course, all about Eretz Yisrael, all about preparing us, our nation for coming in, for you are crossing the Jordan to come and possess the land that Hashem your God gives you. You shall possess it, and you shall settle in it. Mm-hmm. So these are the decrees and the ordinances that you shall observe to perform in the land that Hashem, the God of your forefathers, has given you to possess it all the days that you live in the land. You know, there's something else in this Torah portion that has not appeared anywhere else yet in the Torah and will not appear again. Only time in the entire Torah where you have this expression: you are children to Hashem your God. true that when Moshe confronted Pharaoh, Hashem said to Moshe, tell him, B'ni Bechori Yisrael. Tell him, my firstborn son, Israel. But here he says, you are children to Hashem. And interestingly, of course, he says this in the context of not emulating or imitating the ways of the pagan nations who would harm themselves, who would make cuts in their bodies, who would desecrate their bodies over an excess of mourning. You shall not cut yourselves, and you shall not make a bald spot between your eyes for a dead person. For you are a holy people to Hashem, your God, and Hashem has chosen you for himself to be a treasured people from among all the peoples on the face of the earth. So because you're his children, because you were chosen, because you're a treasured people, you do not cut yourself over a death. And what does that mean exactly? The way I've always understood it is that Hashem is saying, let's say, God forbid, a person loses a father and becomes totally engulfed by existential angst. So Hashem is basically saying, you know what? Actually, I'm your father. Yeah. And that, whoever it is that you've lost, your bond with the knot of all life and the root of all souls is so totally immutable and inexorably solid that, like Hashem is basically saying, like, cool it. I understand you're upset, but don't forget it's all an illusion because I am your father. You are my children, so you don't have to go over on an excess because we're all together forever. So if that would be the real guiding, policy that by which we would conduct ourselves in this land, and by which we would literally see the blessing and the curse, as is implied so directly by the first verse of the Parsha, can you imagine how things would be so different? We wouldn't be in a situation where the police would arrest kids that are outside the Temple Mount at, just quietly outside some gate, minding their own business, moving their lips, and then they're being called a
threat
to public order. If it was emblazoned on our identity card that we have in our pockets that we are the children of Hashem. Here's my identity card. Let's see what it says. I want to read it here. It says, Shem Ha'av, Robert. Father's name, Robert. And your father's name?
Robert.
Also Robert.
Also.
Oh, you and I are so alike.
Mm-hmm.
But if it would say right here on our state-issued identity card, Shem Ha'av, the father's name, God, we might walk a little more jauntily. Maybe at least it's something that we could wave in the cop's face when they're about to arrest us for praying to that same father.
You know who my father is?
Right. I'll have your job. Do you have any idea who my father is? But I'm saying everything would be different, and our whole attitude about this land, about the temple, about what we have to do, about all the other ideas of what constitutes the blessing and what constitutes the curse and what constitutes, fear of Hashem and love of Hashem would all be different if we really took this seriously. And I think that is what the crux of the spiritual revolution and the spiritual battle is that we are feeling. So can I just say something? Again, this is also about the land of Israel, about our jobs here, about coming into the land. That's what we're reading in the Torah portions. The tribes of Israel are getting ready to come in. We're here now. I can't help but think about a story that was in the news last week, and it was treated as a fairly important story by some of the media here. And the story is about how you pronounce in English halva. Halva,
yeah,
which is a popular sesame treat.
Mm-hmm.
It's a candy made from sesame seeds mashed. So there was a big story last week, which has only now been settled.
Yeah.
And the story is that Brussels Airlines,
mm-hmm.
which services Ben Gurion Airport, stopped serving a halva snack, which was a dessert on one of the menus of one of its flights, because it is made by a company called Achva, which actually literally means
brotherhood,
fraternity.
Fraternity.
In the Barkan Industrial Park near the city of Ariel in the northern West Bank. So Belgium's biggest airline, Brussels Airlines, pulled this halva snack from its flights because there was a group that supports the boycott movement against Israel. So they pulled it. And when they first pulled it, they said as follows. Okay, they pulled it because there were complaints by the Palestine Solidarity Movement, which is a proponent of the boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement. One passenger had alerted the group about the snack. Okay, one passenger who had his eyes wide open alerted the group that this sesame treat was being served. And this is the statement that Brussels Airlines made last week. They said, "We're an airline catering to a large international audience. It's our responsibility to offer products that please all," the airline said in its earlier statement on pulling the halva. "Therefore, we decided to take the halva bars off the menu and replace it with another product." And don't forget that last year the European Union adopted rules that require clear labeling for products made in the West Bank, in West Bank settlements. Now, the report of the snack's removal sparked outrage in Israel. I'm reading from an article here from the Times of Israel. The report on the snack's removal sparked outrage in Israel, with Tourism Minister Yair Levin calling for the Belgian airline to be banned from the country. Airline spokeswoman Kim Danen said the decision to pull the halva snacks from its flights was not politically motivated. She told the Times of Israel that while a passenger did object to the, and I quote, controversial settlement-made halva served on a vegetarian in-flight meal, the airline pulled the product because it was mistakenly delivered by its Israeli supplier and should never have been included at all. As a company, we are politically mutual. I think she meant neutral. We are not boycotting any product, she said. We only removed it because we did not order it. Which, by the way, is a total reversal from what they first said, which I just read to you, which is that because we cater to a large international audience, it's our responsibility to offer products that please all. Anyway, she emphasized that the airline was committed to Israel, where it flies 11 flights to and from Tel Aviv weekly. We are invested in Israel, and it's not at all in our best interest, that's SIC, to participate in a boycott, she said. Brussels Airlines has been flying to Israel for 13 years. We are very loyal to this country. It's an important market for us. Now, but that's not what I wanted to emphasize to you. What I wanted to emphasize to you. No, I'll take up the whole half with this. It's unbelievable. I know you didn't have too much to talk about anyway.
Hey,
listen.
I can't believe you cut me off.
So now it's back. While Brussels Airlines said last week it did not order the halva and the snack was served on its flight by mistake, the airline now called the food manufacturer Achva, and I quote, one of our trusted suppliers, in a statement to the Israeli Foreign Ministry, even though it's made in Ariel. It is clear, and I quote, that Achva remains one of our trusted suppliers without any distinction related to the origin of the product, and therefore we will continue to accept Achva's products on board our flights, especially given its positive role in the community, the Brussels Airlines statement read. P.S. Achva is located in the Barkan Industrial Park near the city of Ariel in the northern West Bank. Here's the part that I wanted to read to you, Yitzchak, that I know you're going to love. You see, when this happened, I don't know, this seems to be news to you. I don't know, you weren't reading about this last week. When this happened, there was a flurry of international activity. People were pressing the red buttons located underneath their desks. Yeah. Understand? The diplomats were summoned, and it was like a huge project. Now here's the paragraph that means everything to me. The change came about through the, and I quote, the quick work of the foreign ministry at the direction of Dori Gold, the deputy head of public advocacy and the advocacy unit, and our embassies in Brussels and Berlin, according to a foreign ministry statement. So what happened here was that in a bold move, in a bold demonstration of achva, of fraternity, of brotherhood, of Israeli sovereignty. No, it may be that the cops are picking up 12-year-old girls for moving their lips outside the Temple Mount. Forget about on the Temple Mount where people are banned, some of your best friends. But that may be. But when it comes to a slight against everybody's favorites, mashed tahina seeds, candy, no, the quick work of the foreign ministry at the direction of Dory Gold, the deputy head of the public advocacy unit, and our embassies in Brussels and Berlin, staved this crisis. What am I trying to say here? You may be wondering. What I'm trying to say is, this is so ludicrous that you can't even make this stuff up. All of this comes from the murky, ambiguous, ambivalent, half-baked position of successive Israeli governments, including this one, about who we are, about what this land is, about what these parcels of our homeland are to us. So now they're like, wow, giborim begadol. How do I even translate that? Wow, they're like the heroes.
Big heroes.
They're big heroes because they actually activated the various diplomats in key European cities to see to it that the Halva snack was reinstated. And you know what? Oh, we taught Brussels Airlines a lesson. Look how they changed their tune from saying that they were, responsible to please everyone, to saying, oh, is a trusted supplier of ours. But why is this in the news? Why did I read this? This is so ridiculous. Why is this being treated? And Times of Israel, of course, in a slightly sardonic, semi-sarcastic subtitle, says about this article, sweet success. Wow, we had a success. We got that Halva back on Brussels Air. You know what? Who cares when, at the same time, the UN today, I saw in a headline, complained, or was it the State Department, or was it the European Union, or was it all of them, that there's been an unprecedented growth in Israeli settlements, which, first of all, I wish it was true, because as far as I can see, there's a freeze. And second of all, as if we're not allowed to build. Again, this whole tired claptrap that we are being sold, that is leaking down from the highest office of our own land, that is so ambiguous and not making a clear statement that of course we're going to build in Eretz Israel, of course we're going to build homes for our children in Judea and Samaria. But no, we're condemned by the EU and by the United Nations and by the State Department. Oh, you must not be serious about the two-state solution if there's all this building going on, which I wish were true. But yet, when it comes to, a tremendous slight against the people of Israel because the snack was pulled, they seem to manage to get their act together, and we taught them a lesson. What lesson did we teach them when we do not consistently convey the idea that, as we are reading about in these Torah portions, we're going to the land, we're here to stay, we fear only Hashem, and we have a job to do in this world because we are His children. And everyone else, bye, don't eat my halva, and don't fly your planes into my country, and don't give me any of your help, and leave me alone, is what I'm trying to say. Anyway, I'm sorry I took up so much time with this,
but I think you just covered the main bullet points of this week's parasha, which is open your eyes, see the blessing, realize, recognize that we are the children of God, and recognize that the children of God are man, and the mahut, the
essence.
Being essence of man is fearing God, and that if we accept this upon ourselves, accept this about ourselves, then guess what? God will choose a place within our nation for His name to dwell, and there'll be peace in the land. I think that is how the introduction of the idea of God choosing a place for His name to rest, that's how it concludes.
What I'm trying to say is, I wish that the foreign ministry wouldn't just stand up for the sesame snack on the flight, but would stand up for our right to live in this land.
Absolutely. Again, it's a matter of, are we the children of God, or are we, who not even want to go there? but if we're the children of God, which we are, then we need to stand up for ourselves. And yeah, like you said, you don't want our halva, okay, someone else will eat it.
You don't know what you're missing.
Yeah, you don't know what you're missing. And if anybody out there is not familiar with halva, I suggest you go out and get some. It's a delicious treat.
It's the closest thing you can get to the manna. And I have that on authority.
Whoa. Just, it can be a little tough on your teeth, so be careful. Anyway, that's it. That's what we have to say. Rabbi, you mentioned that your video teaching on the Parshat will focus on the idea of a chosen place. What does it mean that God chooses a place? I thought God made up his mind thousands of years ago.
Yeah.
From the very beginning, we know that place was always the place.
And more so, why is the temple called the chosen house?
What is it all about? So, everybody,
teaser.
listen to this week's video Torah teaching on Parshat Re'eh, which of course you know you can find in our YouTube channel like every other week of the year. Thank you so much for being with us. This has been Temple Talk. We'll be back next week. Temple Talk.